Heartist podcast with John White.
Welcome. Well, let's just start this off by saying I have been working on this first episode for quite a while now. I've had a lot of ideas on how I want to do it and how I want to set this whole thing up. So I guess I'll start with what the podcast is, or what the podcast is about. And yeah, I really don't know, in all honesty. I don't know what this will turn out to be. So it's honestly just a big mystery for everybody. It's going to be, well, I can tell you what it will be. It will be my unique life experiences, stories of things that I've been through. And I've been through a lot, so I have quite a bit. And more importantly, it's where I've gotten. I'm 41 years old. Well, by the time this releases, I'll be 42. Yeah, that the older, I don't know, the age is setting in with the body. As all of you that are in their 40s understand, things start to change, and my body's not as in good shape as it used to be, and it's difficult at times. But anyways, as far as being 41, I've experienced so many things up to this point. My life would definitely be, if there was a theme to it, it's like a fucking roller coaster ride. Yeah, a big fucking scary roller coaster that I feel at this point in time it's not as turbulent as it used to be. That's for sure. Life always has its unexpected, uncontrollable events that pop up. But my state of mind, my overall well-being, and how I look at things now is so much different from where I came from. So I guess I'll just start there. I'll just jump right into it, and we'll go right into just kind of giving you a background on who the fuck I am and why the hell I have a podcast. Again, I can't sit here and explain to you what this podcast is about, because in all honesty, for the past 5 years, I've been hearing people tell me randomly, you should start a podcast. Oh, you'd be perfect for a podcast. I've gotten readings from mediums where I've heard from loved ones that have passed on that I should be doing a podcast because of my strengths as far as communicating. This is a very good way for me and other parts of me that fall into making this successful. So I finally listened. It terrified me. I couldn't stand listening to my voice for a long time. Forever. I couldn't. I don't like, like most people, hearing your voice is pretty cringe worthy, or even seeing yourself on a video. But I'm not in that place anymore. I don't mind it anymore. Something changed in me over all this work that I've done within myself, self-appreciation I've gained. Yeah, I don't mind seeing myself on videos anymore. It is what it is. I always looked for perfection for so long and strive for perfection. And I've just now come to the realization at 41 years old that there's nothing that's perfect. Nothing is meant to be perfect. It's kind of a mystic word, but I'm not here to be perfect. I've realized that, my life is full of crazy mistakes, and I just gave up on that idea and just settled with just being a human being, and by studying my strengths and my weaknesses, becoming more comfortable with myself by understanding what my strengths are and focusing on those and recognizing my weaknesses. And that has been very important to my confidence and understanding my place, understanding what I'm able to do, my capabilities and my limitations. And I'm comfortable with that now. That has in turn given me significant confidence. That's part of the puzzle, at least. But that's where I'm at as far as, this podcast goes. I'm ready to do it. I guess I would say that I am meant to do this. I feel it. I felt it for a long time. I've always wanted to write a book about my life. Up until I remember being in my 20s, there was always this feeling to journal and write things down, in which I was lazy about doing that in my 20s. And my 20s were just a big fucking blackout anyways. I wasn't very disciplined in any way. But I always had this urge to want to share my story with people. But I felt like that would be very arrogant or not humble in any way, to just be throwing out, and like, who would have interest in my story, or so many things that went through my mind to tell myself not to do it. And all it really was just me keeping my ego safe from people judging. And I don't fucking care about that anymore. I'm in a place in my life where I've accomplished what I've accomplished. And no matter what I do, there will be plenty of people out there that will not like what I'm doing.
Boo!
Won't understand it.
What in the hell is that?
And I could fucking care less anymore, in all honesty. I really, that stuck with me for so long. And especially over the past 6-7 months, I've done so much work and just been by myself so much that I really have enjoyed what I've become. I want everyone, but importantly, other guys, to understand what this is in a way, because I'm a mixture of a lot of things. And I want people to be able to eventually be comfortable in doing what they want to do, and having that, I don't really care anymore what other people think. I really want to be able to bring my creativity to the table, be my unique self, and offer that to the world. I guess that sounds like some kind of fantasy, but it's a reality to me. And if I can even help shorten the time period, it took me 40 years to get to this point, and if I could shorten that and I could reach someone that's in their 20s, and maybe it just, through them listening and an experience kind of that I have or I've had, resonates with them, and it kind of kickstarts something in their mind where they start to process a little bit earlier, and they get a couple extra years of truly living in being their true self. That would be awesome. Another reason why I want to do this podcast is my kids. I have 2 boys that at the moment are 11 and 12, which is a very significant age for me, and I'll get into that with some of my story. But I want my boys to be able to, this is a good way for me to put all this shit out there and open myself up to my experiences, and somewhat in a chronological order, to maybe make sense of things, because they know of a lot of my pain just because of recent death in my family and struggles that I've talked to them about. I'm aggressive communicator at times. That's a very good phrase for it. For those of you that are into astrology, I am a Gemini moon, so I love to talk, and I love to talk about my feelings a lot. That's how I express, is through my feelings, just through just talking. So getting things out, that's kind of my way of getting things out, and this podcast also helps me in that, and that is this is a form of therapy for me. But back to my boys, I want to be able to give them just an understanding of who their dad is. Something that I struggled with growing up, and over the past 6 years, got a little understanding of my dad a little bit more. But this will really throw it all out there and give them strengths. If it doesn't reach anybody, or it doesn't help anybody, which I don't think that would be the case, that it will at least really reach them, and they'll have this as forever a way to hear my voice and me to tell them that I'm always watching out, and that I live this life, and it doesn't have to be that hard for you. It can be a lot easier. Everything doesn't have to be a struggle. And that goes for everybody. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be as hard as it is. But I'm a very stubborn person. My stubbornness, in all honesty, has forced me to learn a lot of things the hard way. And that's okay. Because through all of those difficult experiences, I get to present those to you in this podcast. And then you can take whatever you want from them. So, having said all that, and I'm not even sure that I touched on everything that I wanted to, I don't know. And this is something, again, I've been sitting here struggling for days now, trying to figure out what exactly, for weeks now, how I wanted this first episode to go. And I just was like, okay, after talking to my producer, my buddy, Dain, we just discussed that we kind of have a format on how we want to go about doing this. And it's completely opposite of what I originally thought and what I'd been planning on doing. We're going to wing this thing. And it's uncomfortable for me. But at the same time, it actually brings its own level of comfort because I am a talker. And when I do tend to talk, sometimes when I get on a roll and I get going, some really profound things come out of my mouth. And I used to always own them as my own, my amazing thoughts. But then I started to recognize as time went on and I stepped back a little bit and I could see that, wait a minute, I would say things to someone in giving advice and it would be like, where the fuck did that come from? I never even thought about that. And the way that my mind works, just a little glimpse into the way my mind works is I like to, and you may notice sometimes in this podcast or just speaking with people, I filter everything before it comes out of my mouth for the most part. My ego is always checking my words to make sure that I'm saying the right thing at the right time. And this kind of falls back in another part of my personality for the first half of my life of always wanting to fit in and be a people pleaser. And I've really practiced this hard as a teenager to getting and perfecting this. And now I'm kind of deconstructing that a little bit because I realize there's some good knowledge that happens. And I don't know where it comes from.
You're asshole.
Just some things will flow out and I literally can look at myself and say that was meant for me at the same time as it was for whoever. That whatever the message was, I didn't really realize before. And I can sit in the middle of a conversation and it will hit me and say, holy shit, that was for me as well. Like I'm talking to myself here. And then I sit with that and I gave myself advice. I don't know where it's coming from. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's some form of channeling something, and I'm trying to stay away from all of these trendy spiritual words just because they're a turnoff for some people. And I won't get into that right now, but yeah, something happens to me and I can feel it energetically when I'm done. I literally can feel my energy in my body drained. When I go on a rant for 5 to 10 minutes, I start to feel a lightness in my head, a numbness, and a different feeling in my chest. Like my heart has like a palpitations. It's weird. I don't know if it's palpitations is the right word, but I've heard somebody describe something similar to this before, and I just was like, I guess that's what I'm doing. But I don't know. I'm not going to tie any terms or try to explain exactly what it is because it doesn't really matter. Because whatever it is that's happening, it's pretty fucking awesome, and I want to share it. And I meant to share it. I originally wanted to sit down and write the episodes out because the Virgo in my natal chart makes me analyze and break everything down. And it's something that's very irritating to a lot of people close to me at times, especially in my personal relationships. I like to have everything structured out and laid out, planned out, have full control over the situation. This podcast is not going to be that. And once again, this puts me in a very uncomfortable position. But I have learned that those uncomfortable positions are where the good shit's at. those are the times when I step back and I say, damn, that was pretty cool. No matter how much anxiety it gives me, and anxiety is an issue in me, but no matter how much anxiety it gives me, if I can just find a way to get around that, try to be in the moment of whatever that uncomfortable thing is, find the positive aspects of it, maybe in some way let go of the control and see what happens. And when I do that, some of the coolest things have come out of me. My creativity, for example, I've shocked myself with some of the things I've done as far as what I've been able to build. I love to build furniture and all kinds of shit. The dog needs something to hold the dog bowl, and I built a little stand for that. I've built bookshelves to shelves in my house. So many different things. I'll get into all of that creative side of me, but when I have stepped out of that, out of my own head, and let it just happen and see where it goes, I've been able to create some pretty awesome shit. Being able to be uncomfortable and let that happen, then there's magic that's created. That's another thing, as far as I love to listen to very interesting, successful people. I've always been very interested in successful people and hearing their story. I love to find out how they got to where they're at and all the things that happened, that took place in order to get there. And there always seems to be, in almost everybody I've ever heard, there always seems to be these signs, these things that pointed them in this direction. They always seem like they either did recognize them for a long time or for, throughout their life, or they ignored them. Why I'm doing the podcast, this is another thing that's happened to me, is that I've had these signs for so long that I did ignore, because I lived a very controlled life. I lived a very controlled life mainly because of my childhood. In my childhood, there was no stability at all. It was very much all over the place. And at no point during any of these podcasts am I ever looking for any kind of sympathy or a hug. I'm literally doing this because it feels good to get it out. And more importantly, express to everyone how I look at all of those situations that were very, very hard to deal with at the time, and some very traumatic things that happened that really fucked me up and kind of added to the person that I am. I built a lot of walls to protect myself. And I created a lot of rules so that I wouldn't get hurt, and so I wouldn't experience pain the way that I had as a kid, and disappointment. I look back on all those things now, and all those situations, and now that I've sat with them, and when people talk about doing like inner child work, that's another trendy word that's out there right now. What inner child work to me is going back and trying to relive some of these situations that were extremely uncomfortable, and sit with that kid and just feel that shit, and then recognize what those feelings are, that's okay, and that's it, and then move on from there. Later on, I found, looking back in those situations, that they become strengths for me because they were tests. I'm still here. I made it through. I look at my heart, and there was like I built a fucking fortress around it. Not only did I build a fortress around it, I built a moat. I got a couple dragons, built another wall, and more walls. And all to protect myself from being hurt again. The past 6 years, I've spent breaking those walls down and going in reverse to opening that up. And not to sound corny or cliche, but if you want to receive love and you want to actually experience true unconditional love, you can't have a fucking fortress and a moat and a bunch of goddamn dragons flying around it to protect it, because you're not going to let anybody in. So I've learned to take all of those situations that were so painful for me and turn them into strengths. Turn them into an armor. And not an armor that doesn't let people in, but an armor that shines. Maybe it makes me look arrogant in a way, because I walk around with my head up high, my shoulders not slouching, my back more upright, and kind of a cocky bounce in my step. Yeah, that's me now, because I've went through it. I'm proud of it. So I think at this moment, I'm going to end this first episode and kind of leave it at that. And again, my mind is all over the place. As you listen to this, I can be hard to follow because so much is going on in my mind. If there's something coming through me and helping me with my words, there's also my ego. There's also my subconscious. All these things that play. And it's a 6th grade playground that's happening. And it's a tug of war. Hopefully through this podcast, it comes out clear to you and you can get whatever you can get out of it. And hopefully you can follow it, follow along the journey. And more importantly, follow what's going on in my mind and make sense of it. I'm kind of treating this as a conversation, a one-sided conversation, I guess, where I'm just talking and imagining that someone's sitting there listening. At some point in time, I have a good feeling that will be a good group of people that hopefully I'm able to help with my words and my experiences, so that maybe others can avoid some of the mistakes that I've made and learn through me. That would be pretty fucking dope. Thanks everyone for listening. If you'd like to learn more about me and my experiences, follow @AwakenHeartist on Instagram or visit the website awakenheartist.com.